second episode in 2022. So today I will do a brief review of the China's tech companies and how they performed in 2021. And this will be our part one, which I will list some of the worst performers, I think. Obviously, you can tell from this past year that the whole tech company world just doesn't seem performing so well in China. So it's much easier to find the bad performers compared to the good performers. But I will definitely do a follow-up episode next week to also list some of the best performers I can think of. So today we'll just talk about all the big names that didn't satisfy the investors. So first, we'll start with Didi, which is the largest ride-haul company in China. For each of these companies I will mention, I will first talk about the brief history and then talk about why they didn't, how and why they didn't perform well this past year, 2021. So Didi was founded in the early 2010s as a ride-haul company in China, and it went through a battle with some of its main competitors. For the Chinese ones, Didi just combined with them, and for the Uber China, they did a stock swap. So essentially, Didi acquired the Chinese branch of Uber, while Uber acquired more of Didi's stocks. So actually, Uber is one of the largest shareholder of Didi. I believe by this time they probably still own 10% of Didi. And this year, one major thing happened to Didi, which is that they went public in New York Stock Exchange, but very quietly, which raises a lot of concern from the Chinese government, especially on the security breach part, since when you are trying to go public on the U.S. stock exchange like the New York one, you have to provide a lot of your user data and information. And for Didi, the ride-haul company, they have to provide a lot of traffic data of China citizens or people who are staying in China and use their service. So this is viewed by the Chinese government as a pretty huge security concern. So that actually resulted in much stricter restrictions on Didi by the government. And just recently, they started to delist from the NYSE, New York State Stock Exchange, from the pressure and start to relist in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And so far, it seems like the performance isn't so great. So this is my first mention of the bad performers in China tech world. And just give you a few numbers. So, for example, the Uber just lost over $2 billion US dollars because of the decrease of the value of the share of Didi that they owned. And then the second company I want to mention is called Suning Holdings Group. So they have companies in multiple channels. Their most famous one to investors is probably their electric appliance, which is essentially like a Best Buy in China. And then they are also pretty famous for their investment in sports. For example, they used to own the Inter Milan, which is a really good soccer club in Italy. And in the past few months, they've also been in huge troubles, especially because that they just have such high debt rate that the local province government and some other investors have to step in and bail out them. That also definitely resulting in, stock price decrease and more exterior control now of the Suning Holdings Group. By the way, I will all have these links listed in the show notes on the Notion page, so you can check the news and the information. And the third one will be the Alibaba Group, which is one of the largest tech companies in China. And I think the reason that it didn't perform well this year is closely related to the overall economic picture. So obviously their biggest source of revenue is from their online e-shopping branch, such as Taobao or Tmall. So usually every year on November 11th, they will do a big shopping event, which is quite famous now, even to the whole world. And for the past few years, they've always been reporting their revenue, especially on that day. And usually the sales number is just insane to anyone who's first time reading it. However, this year, they didn't choose to report such numbers, and we can probably infer from that they just didn't have a good sales number due to the whole consumer sectors of the China's economy has been declining this past year. That definitely has two aspects. The first one is probably China, like many other countries, are still recovering from the impact of COVID. The second is just the whole Chinese culture isn't focused as much on consumption as many other countries. So it's be pretty hard to stimulate the consumption sector of the economy in China. I don't think there's any huge stimulus plan for the consumers in China that has happened yet or is going to happen soon. So Alibaba definitely also seeing a huge value decrease in the past year. There are also some other scandals that happened to Alibaba. For example, a lot of the top broadcasters on their e-commerce platforms have been recently reported to avoid paying the tax they're supposed to pay. So these broadcasters, they are like streamers on Twitch.tv. So they will do live streams where they demo the products and send the links in their stream for the customers that are watching to purchase those products. And they've been doing some crazy numbers of sales, especially for the top performers. But since this is such a fresh new business model, so a lot of them were able to get away with paying the right amount of tax for the past few years. And this is the first year that we see some legal actions taken against them. So this also caused certain damage to Ali's brand image, thus decreasing the value of the company. And the last one I want to talk about is the education tech sector of the China's tech world. And this is caused mostly by the new education policy reform in China, where essentially the government is saying you are not allowed to offer any tutoring or extracurricular courses, especially from K to 9th grade. So those were the mandatory education period in China. So all these tech companies, they just lost a huge chunk of their revenue, probably close to 80-90% of their revenue, because those young kids or their parents are the main customers of these ed tech companies, where they take their online courses or go to their offline spots for tutoring service. So from these, essentially all the companies, they're either just almost evaporate their whole value, or they are painfully trying to switch to some new business models. And this is still an ongoing process. So I will definitely do a follow-up episode later this year, try to report back on how the edtech industry in China will look like late 2022 once they finish this whole transition process. So these few are the worst performers in the China's tech world last year. If you have any suggestions or anything to add, feel free to leave a comment or message me, and I will definitely mention those in the next episode where I will cover the best performance in China's tech world last year. So thank you so much for listening. Wish you a happy new year and see you soon. Bye-bye.